Hi guys, it's Tuesday Friday with FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY, and today we'll be discussing the AWS Awesome Day event summary and how cybersecurity experts can leverage the cloud in conducting their various cybersecurity activities. So the event was an awesome one, as the event was described to be, and we learned a lot of things during the course of the event. And these informations we've learned, we are excited to share a few of them with you, which are very important when it comes to cybersecurity. The event was an event that consisted of 5 models. Each took a minimum of 50 minutes. During the event, a lot of information was disclosed regarding the Amazon Web Services Cloud. And these informations are very essential, especially if you're a cloud architect or if you're interested in pen testing the cloud. You should know about these informations and learn how you can put one or two things together and leverage informations from this event to fit into your cybersecurity activities. So let's say if you're a penetration tester, you can understand how you can pen test the cloud. If you're a first incident responder, you can learn how to use informations regarding the cloud trail to audit for incidents, which will help you to conduct your forensic investigation. And other aspect of cybersecurity for those who want to build tools with generative AI, you can also be able to use the Amazon generative AI services to build your own AI, which would be able to carry out specific tasks or events. So without further ado, let's get started. So when you talk about Amazon Cloud Services, we're talking about storage, database, and the applications provided in store by Amazon Web Services. So you can also go to their store to search for certain applications and install them on your S3 bucket, your EC2, or whatever services you're using provided by Amazon. On provisioning on cloud, one of the points why you should provision on the cloud is on agility. Needs are based on your demand. Let's say, for instance, you want a VPC, which is a virtual private cloud. You can specify the configurations you want and just fill in the forms. These configurations will be received by the IT professionals at Amazon. And after this has been properly configured and set up, you will definitely get a notification which will now display your billing information. So in this case, how much it's going to cost you and how much that was debited during the process of you describing what you want your virtual private cloud to consist of. On the same provisioning, Amazon Cloud offers elasticity. So when you talk about elasticity, we're talking about resources here. Let's say, for instance, you're a new guy in the industry, or you just had your own startup and you're using the AWS cloud to host some of your applications. So let's say when you started a business, right? You had a market forecast of about 300 customers by the end of the year. But as a result of you having good services and your applications works efficiently, right? People now promote your services for you without you even being aware about that, just because you offer good services. So within a span of, let's say, 6 months, what you forecasted for like 1 year has been exceeded. So that means you're catering for a lot of customers, right? Which requires a lot of storage capacity. So when you need this storage capacity, let's say your cloud is on premise, right? You have to make order for, let's say, a storage drive. And even after you've made order for this storage drive, you have to wait for a certain period of time for this storage drive to arrive. Then you now talk about the hassle of setting this up, doing some configuration, moving data from one point to another, just to make sure that everything works efficiently. But this is being fixed for you when it comes to the cloud with Amazon. So once you discover that, like, let's say your customers database is, exceeding beyond what you forecasted, you can decide to, like, okay, increase your storage capacity without going through the stress of, buying, waiting for it to arrive, calling the IT guy to install. So you can always, extend your resources based on your demands. So the more you have customers and the more you need more capacities, you can also increase this cloud storage or services that you are using. The next is on cost saving. So when it comes to cost saving, we are talking about discarding your instances. So let's say you have multiple storage units whereby you're hosting your containers, right? And let's say you're done with a particular container, you don't need the services anymore. You can just tear it down or you can pull it down, and that will save cost. So as long as that container is no more in use and you have torn it down, Amazon is not going to be charging you for that. Whereas if it's on premise, you have to, not just pulling down the container, you also have to destroy the physical storage, which of course is very expensive. Or even if you don't destroy it, you keep it, it's just going to lie there dormant, occupying space without being used. So all these problems and all these hassles has been fixed and resolved for you by Amazon. So you do not even need to spend money to buy new storage. And also when you don't need that storage, you discard it, which of course is going to be a waste of resources, right? So that also, when you use the cloud in your provisioning instead of on-premise cloud, Amazon will be saving you cost. The next is on global deployment. So you can swiftly deploy your application with Amazon Cloud, and this application will be made available globally to all your customers and users without any hiccup or challenges along the way. So what are the benefits of cloud services? The first point here is that expenses. So you're trading upfront expenses for variable experience. Like we previously said, when you try to purchase a storage, right, to install, you have to wait for a certain period of time. And not just within a certain period of time, even when the storage arrives, right, you still need to call the IT guy to fix it. And after the IT guy has to fix it, you still need to do some test running, some security checks to ensure that the server is properly patched, because you don't want the situation whereby the server is exposed to the public internet and is vulnerable to some exploit, right? That would, defeat the purpose of the experience or security benefits that your customers or your previous customers have experienced with your services, right? So of course you don't want to go through that hassle. So when you contract this to the cloud, you are not bothered about the security. You're not bothered about this whole shenanigans that's going to come around with this new provisioning. Amazon is just going to handle everything for you. All you just need to do, depending on the type of service you purchased, you now need to do some little configurations. Or if it's serverless services that you demanded, then that means you do not have to even think about updating or patching. All you just need to do is to focus on your application and find a way to get your application running or installed. Then in terms of economic scaling, the benefit from massive economic scaling is that Amazon provides services for lots of people. Currently, they own about 31% of the market share. That's quite a lot. So with this, you are not paying quite much of a fee when you are using their cloud services. Besides that, depending on also the kind of services you're using, if you're using the VPC, then that comes with a bit, cost. But if you're using the public cloud, then you should be rest assured that this is not going to cost you that much. It's just going to be a little cost. And with that, that is, quite a huge savings. You do not need to worry about like, oh, if I also install a new server, I'm going to be the one to use the server alone, right? That would cost me a lot. I have to factor in security, installing racks, installing wire cables, installing coolants and all that. So all these things you don't need to bother about it. And not just that, also spending this huge sum of amount just to install a particular server and to cater for like customers who are not that too much of a capacity in terms of new customers added into the organizations, and compared to the cost of provisioning new storage, right? So this economic scaling is very important. It saves you cost, and also because they are handling a lot of people, you do not get to pay a lot of money when you compare that to when you're just dealing it on by yourself and you're only serving your own customers. So on capacity, you need to stop guessing capacity based on your demand. One of the benefits of this is that it offers you the flexibility to increase your capacity at any given time. So let's say if your bandwidth, is exhausted and you need additional bandwidth to, improve the services of your customers, you can just adjust this capacity based on the demands or based on the capacity of your new customers. So you don't need to guess like, okay, let's say you're the one setting up this cloud storage on your on-premise cloud, right? You cannot say, okay, this month I have 600 customers. Maybe next month I'm going to have 1,000. So let me just get storage for covering 1,000. Then that next month you don't have 1,000. That would be a loss, right? But with the Amazon cloud, you don't need to guess. You don't need to even worry about that. If you have 600 customers, your focus will be to handle the 600 customers. And when the customers improve or increases, you don't need to also worry about that. You can just, increase your capacity and make a payment based on the additional storage capacity or bandwidth capacity you requested. Now, the next thing is on availability zones. Amazon Cloud Services uses what we call availability zones, and each zones reside in a region. So in a region, Amazon provides about 3 zones, except in the US, because in the US, they have multiple servers in the US. So I think for each region in the US, they have only 2 zones, and that will be explained to you in the next chapter. So why you need the zones is that, let's say you have a lot of customers, right? You do not want to have a situation whereby you're experiencing service downtime. You want your customers to always get access to your applications. Let's say you're hosting a web application using Amazon, right? Or you're hosting a mobile applications and all that. So you want your clients or your customers to always have access. And this access will be based on the capacity or zones. So when you use the ELB, which is the elastic load balancer, you can spread the traffic that comes into your application to these zones. So when each zone is overwhelmed with the traffic, right, it can switch to the next zone. So by such doing, your application is up and running and there is no downtime. So that's the benefit of using the availability zones, which is provided by Amazon Web Services Cloud. So like here you can see we have the US East 2 and the US East 1. So how does this work is that Amazon Web Services on their cloud, it starts with the country, which is where the server is located, then the region, on what part of the country where the server is located, then the number is the zone. So if you look at US East 2, US is the country, it's in the east region of US, and the zone is zone 2. And the state which the zone 2 is in Ohio. So in the Ohio state, that's where we have the zone 2 in the east region. And for the east 1 region, we have the Virginia. So in Virginia, that's where the zone 1 is. Then if you move on to the US West 1, which is the west region, the zone 1, it's in California. And for the zone 2, we have it in Oregon. So you have to understand all these things. And this is very important, especially when you're pen testing containers. Let's say you're pen testing a cloud, right? You can see some EC, then some gibberish numbers and all that. So know all this. This is very important. You want to understand what region of the client you're pen testing that is always vulnerable. And that's also going to help you. Let's say you're pen testing an application and you discover that in some certain region, for instance, you're using Shodan, right? When you're making research about this various targets and you discover that, okay, in the East region, you see it on the map, country, location, and all that. That's where this container that was open. So this can also help you when you're pen testing in the future. You can always know that that particular region, there's always some security loopholes, or the IT guy who is responsible for that region is not security conscious. So that would also give you easy wins as a cybersecurity expert. So learn all these things, understand how the cloud services works, and understand how these various regions and how it's integrated in the application, and how you can also exploit them to discover vulnerabilities when it comes to cybersecurity as a pen tester in this case. Now, here is a typical Amazon Web Services portal. When you check here, you can see we have the root, right? The root user, and we have the I am user. Whenever you want to sign up for the Amazon Web Services, you will sign up as a root user. Then when you log in, you can decide to create an administrative user. Most users are always prone to those mistakes. They log in as the root user and start, doing some configurations and all that. So you as a pen tester, when you pen test an application and you discover a root user, you also obtain the password. You can move on to this portal and try to see if you can use this credential and log in. And if you can use these credentials and log in, that means everything about not just the containers or the services running on that particular container, everything about the entire web services of that organization can be obtained. So these are the things you should learn how to do. They are very important. They will help you and they will guide you on your journey as a penetration tester in the cloud. So understand all this concept. It's not about, okay, you obtain the container and maybe this container is exposing personal identifiable information and you just report. Go further and dig and see how you obtain that access and look for other informations. So these informations, you can now leverage them and just seize the entire admin panel. And if you can get access to the entire admin panel, that's a real bug right there, because you just have access to everything. You have the entire access. You can mess up every applications. You can decide to move out everything out of there if you're a non-ethical hacker. So you that is a white hacker, when you have this type of access, you report it as a bug and you can definitely be paid a bounty. So always expand your search in terms of resources on how you can exploit cloud and how you can use root users access to gain direct access to the AWS admin panel. So on cloud storage, the Amazon Simple Storage Service, which is the Amazon S3, is used in storing and retrieving files. This is known as the Amazon S3 bucket, right? So a lot of pen testers gain access to a bucket, discovered a list of files. So you also want to understand this. Let's say you also gain access to a file upload storage, right? You can also check if the administrator integrated an appropriate policy in terms of identity access management, right? So once you discover that this is not properly integrated, this is how you can now discover how you can exploit the bucket and discover, files which are not supposed to be in the public view. So you can obtain these files and also report them as bugs. Then under the Amazon file, we still have the Amazon Elastic File System, which is the EFS. So under the EFS, we have the Amazon FSx Lustre. So the Amazon FSx Lustre is when your workload is based on a Linux operating system, and the Amazon FSx Windows is when your workload is based on a Windows operating system. Then for the Amazon Elastic Block Store, which is the Amazon EBS, this is where the operating system can be stored. So whenever you're trying to hack storage, don't just focus on S3. Try to see if you can obtain, vulnerable EFS and also EBS. These are very important. You can always find methodologies on how to exploit these on the internet. And even if you cannot, just understand the concept of how this various file storage, communicate with the user in terms of the user's application. And you can now find a way to exploit it. So always think outside the box. It's not just about attending this event. The goal of the event is for you to understand how you can exploit, these various file system, and not just exploiting them, also how you can make sure that they have high impact or critical impact. So with these informations, you can also learn about these various file storage system and also how you can move around in these file systems when you eventually have access to them. So on cloud containers, the Amazon Elastic Container Registry is responsible for running various clouds containers. So the registry is responsible for running the container image. Here you can see the runtime codes, another information that are very important in executing the container. Now, that is just on the registry. You have nothing to do with that. That's Amazon, except you're testing Amazon as an organization. The major containers you should focus on is the Amazon Elastic Container Services, which is the Amazon ECS, or the Amazon Elastic Kubernetes Services, which is the Amazon EKS. So for the ECS is commonly used for those who are just new to containers. They install Docker and all this, right? So when you have access to these containers, you want to see what rights you can perform on these containers. For instance, can you start them? Can you stop them? Can you shut them down? So all those things are the things you should look out for. And when you can be able to perform those type of acts, which you're not supposed to do because you're not the legitimate administrator, you can also report these as bugs. Usually when a container is running, the only person who has the access to run or stop that container should be the administrator, not you, a pen tester. So if you can perform all these acts, you can also report them as bugs. On the Amazon EKS, so this is basically for Kubernetes, for those who are running multiple containers exceeding, large numbers, big organizations who work with Kubernetes. You can also try and look for this type of containers. And when you find information how to live with them, you can report this as a vulnerability as well. On Cloud Trails, so this is for security auditors or blue teams or first incident responders. This contains information on the various occurrences that has happened on the cloud. It can be policies change, it can be containers shut down. It's going to tell you who did, the location, additional information, including IP addresses. So always look out for these informations. They are very important. They would also help you on how to understand what really went wrong on terms of your policy configurations. So the Cloud Trails is provided by Amazon as well. You can take a look at it if you're a security auditor. And with this, you can also learn about the various configurations which are, inefficient or which were not properly implemented as well. So learn those things as a cybersecurity expert. Not everything requires you to run a tool. Certain things you learn how to, manually do them with the tools provided by the cloud service provider. Okay. So it's not everything you run a tool or you use automation tool or you just execute tools because somebody wrote a tool out there and you heard about it. So learn how to use these integrated services and use them for your own benefit to perform your various cybersecurity activities. On generative AI and prompt engineering, Amazon offers PartyRock. So PartyRock is like for you to create your own generative AI, whereby you can feed in commands to this AI and tell it what you want to do. So you don't need to write your own code. You can just use a few instructions and build the app. And not just building the app. After building, you can also share this to your friends, and your friends will be able to, use it on the public internet as well. So you can decide to make this a private app, you can make it to be a public app, and you don't need to code, you don't need to learn how to code to use PartyRock. Just know what you want to build and proceed to build it. Also on generative AI, it has what we call the Textract. So what does Textract do? Textract can read images and text files, whether it is typed or handwritten, and extract the text in this document. So when you use Textract, let's say you feed an image or a document, Textract will read this document and extract the text message. So once you extract this text message, you can now go on to Poly. So Poly is transcribing text to audio. So you can take this text that were extracted, feed it to Poly, and use Poly to translate this text into audio files. Let's say as a cybersecurity professional, you're always busy, right? You can move your text document using Textract and feed it to Poly to translate it to audio for you. Then you can listen on the go. You can even download the audio file. That's even the beauty of this. So Poly is going to transcribe this for you and read it to you. And you'll be able to, understand the content of the document while you're busy doing other things you are doing when you do not have the time to read a text file or document. So on questions, yours truly was opportune to be asked a few questions during the course of this event. So the first question, we had 100 over 100. Sorry about that. You can see it's 59 seconds, and we tried to rewind it back to see if we can get the questions and answers, but you can see it did not work. And once you answered, you have answered. So you have 1 minute to answer 2 questions in each model. So the second one, we we missed it out, but it's okay. That's how cybersecurity is. You can know it all. On the third question, or the third model, we had 100 over 100, which is also excellent. On the fourth model, the same thing. We had all questions correctly. And on the fifth model, we also had all questions correctly. So that was it about the event, and this is what we've learned regarding how you can implement this in cybersecurity. Sorry, we are not going deep into the entire process of the event. Even though it was a summary, it took 6 hours, and it was a marathon. There was no break. The only break we had was to answer the Q&A and fill in the surveys. So with that being said, I hope you've learned something new. And if you find this video interesting, please do not hesitate to give us a like by hitting that thumbs up button, subscribe by hitting that subscribe button, and turn on notification bell so you'll be the first to get notified when next we post another episode on Tuesday Friday with FIXITGEARWARE-SECURITY. Thanks for watching and see you next time. Bye for now.